we have we had a pile that we,
Oh, that was a pile for. I
there was a
thought I had
pile
some-
for any, should be 4 things.
Okay, pile for you.
Thank you.
Okay, he needs
What else we
a
got
copy of
for
the
you
letter.
here?
You're right. The letter, yep, you need a copy of the letter?
Which letter?
Um,
Which one are we starting
Uncle
with?
James Noble, well, the one with the chart or without the chart?
I think we need both.
Okay, I think we can begin. We have a quorum. This meeting has one agenda item, one only, to discuss New York State consolidated funding applications. And I'm going to ask Kristen Boutin to kind of lead us through this. Okay?
So essentially there's a letter, it looks like this, it has a table on the top, that's the letter that explains everything, all of the different grant projects that we're looking to apply for. They're ordered by number, and some of them have multiple grant applications in the project. There's also a CFA season summary that the numbers match up, so number 1 on here is number 1 on the table. And I think what we'll do is just go through each of these, talk about the project, tell you a little bit about the project, and then essentially the point of tonight's meeting is to have you look at committee reports for authorizing resolutions to apply for the grants. So
And these have to be submitted to the state sometime in July, right?
right, so
The
the
purpose is so we can pass these at the July council meeting.
exactly. So all of the grant applications are due on July 26th, and we're in various stages of developing the grant application. And so some of them we have, a more hard number, like, ready to apply for that number, and then others we just put in, for the authorizing resolution, we put in the maximum amount that you can apply for, but we may in certain instances apply for less. But we just haven't worked through all of the project budgets yet. So as we go, I'll tell you, okay, this is the amount that we're gonna apply for, and this is, for this grant, we might go a little less.
Okay.
So I think I actually want to jump down in the table and start with number 4, because we have Kim Root here from Clark Patterson Lee and or CPL.
CPL.
Okay. And he's going to be helping us out with 2 of the grant applications. So I think we'll talk about Deep Stadium first. So that's number 4. And essentially, for Deep Stadium, we have an existing grant through the Downtown Revitalization Initiative that is for $2.5 million. It's part of the $10 million that we got. So $2.5 million is dedicated towards Deep Stadium. The existing grant is mostly dedicated to the architectural improvements that we would be making on the site. And so that's, upgrades of the stadium, upgrades of the pool, and lighting, other things that are not related to the entire site plan. So this new grant application that we want to put together is for site parking lot and site plan upgrades of the area all around Deep Stadium. And there are 3 grant sources that we may be eligible for. It's the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, and then two different grant programs through the New York State DEC. And so we would essentially apply for green infrastructure to upgrade the whole parking lot system, we'd be looking at circulation improvements and a number of other opportunities to improve the area around Dietz. So I don't know if, Tim, you want to say anything about?
Sure, I mean, this is a very preliminary concept that kind of summarizes all the scope items that are in the previous grant relative to the buildings and the pool. So there is a significant site circulation issue there, and as events go on, you know, we're offloading buses, there's kids, there's soccer teams and whatnot. So part of our goal would be to look at how can we improve the interior traffic flow, not only like, you know, everybody rushing to get a seat before the event, but then certainly once the event is over, you know, there's only one traffic light here that sort of governs, and we're looking at possible other avenues of egress through rights of way and property that the city owns. So once we absorb all that and create like an interior traffic flow plan as part of the green infrastructure that Kristen's talking about, there's certain what they call design practices, or biodetention swales, pervious pavers, pervious pavement, and all those are design features that help to improve water quality relative to stormwater runoff. And you know, right now there's nothing. It's like when you go out there, it's a sea of asphalt. And so what this program helps do is green up the areas and provide natural filtration through stormwater. There's some detention, and depending on our soils investigation, there may be ability to infiltrate stormwater, and the more we can infiltrate, it will relieve the inundation to the existing storm sewer system. So there's a potential benefit on the volume side of it too. So.
By infiltrate, do you mean sink down in the ground?
Correct.
Okay.
It won't all disappear into the ground, but it can alleviate like smaller storms, like a half-inch rain or a 1-inch rain.
Mm-hmm.
And then certainly there'll be overflow pipes that would still go to the system.
And I should just mention that, so what Tim is showing right now, this is a very preliminary conceptual idea for the site plan. And through the existing DRI grant program that CPL's been procured for to do the master planning and the design for the architectural improvements, we will be going through a significant public process to talk about this and get ideas and input on the design alternatives.
Yeah.
So this is not like set in stone. I just want to
Well,
clarify
the
that.
good news for you is anything you design, they gotta look better than what's up there. I mean, that is incredibly unsightly.
Right.
I mean, even the greenery that's there is,
No, it needs
it's
some
awful
help.
looking. I mean, a good hand grenade would probably work wonders up there. So, yeah, this is certainly good news, and this is what we're looking for. I mean, we are looking to make this stadium pop when people come in. This can be so much revenue to this city.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And that's how we approach it. We're looking at it as it's a community asset to the city,
Absolutely.
and try to, really embellish as much as we can. So.
But this is all exterior to the stadium itself.
Correct. This is all around just
Nothing
this.
to do with the field or the track, or
No.
locker rooms. and-
Locker rooms are part of the project that we're going to
Yeah,
design, and the
okay.
ADA bathrooms, and then there's a pool roof, there's pool filtration, there's pool repairs. And, part of our goal is, our job really, is to go in and assess all this infrastructure, look at it relative to its condition, where is it on its useful life, and, there's already been some highlights flagged that we know we have to address.
Does it affect this area up in here?
Yeah, so right now we're thinking big, right? So Kristen put in for the maximum amount of dollars that could be funded through, I think it was 3 different programs. Right now, the beauty of what we can do is design this in phases. We can scale back the design relative to, the funding that becomes available. But I think for now we kind of were trying to capture the big picture. So.
Right, so this would essentially be $5 million project, and we would have 3 different funding sources, and one of them can be matched by one of the other grants. So
the total max is, I'm trying to do the math here, adding up to $5 million. You got an EFC application around $2 million,
Mm-hmm.
DEC, application amount of 1 million. DEC, W-QUIP, 1 million, so that's 4. Where's the other million?
So there, it's, two,
I'm just trying to arrive at 5
so
million.
it's the match. So it's everything except for the 222,000.
Mm-hmm,
It's the GIGP application amount, 2 million, plus DEC, CSC application amount, 1 million, plus the DEC grant match, 1 million, so that's 4 million, plus the DCW QUIP non-point application, that's 1 million, and then the match for the city is 1.25.
so the matches, there are 3 matches, 220, 222, 222, 1 million, and 1250, right?
Yep.
Just-
But the 2222 is matched by the million of the CSC grant, so that's what makes it a little bit confusing. Like, if you add up all these numbers on this list, they don't add up to 5 million.
That's my problem there, trying to
yeah.
understand it.
Yeah, so, but they actually maybe need to add up to 5.25 million. Let me think about that. Yeah, it's actually 5.5 point, right? Help me out here, Tim. I think it's 5.25.
4 plus the 1.25.
2 million.
Yeah. The
So-
total project cost should be 5.25 million.
Plus 1 million,
Yeah.
plus
I'll mark on this one.
another million.
That one.
Okay, so that's $4 million in grants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 4 million in grants,
Plus 1.25 million, or 1.2 million in match, so it should be 5.25 million.
1.250 in match.
Yeah.
Total expected city match. And that comes, like, 1.25 million comes from,
The 1.25 million comes from the DEC
CSC.
and the DECW QUIP.
okay. So then the total,
Total project cost should be 5.25 million, not 5 million.
and the match, so on the committee report, what do I want? I got 4A.
On the
B, C.
committee report, you just want to change the total project. Well, so the committee reports are going to be a little confusing because there's
Yeah.
3 of them.
We'll get through them.
Yeah. So this is 4A. Four A is, the grant amount would be 2 million. The match amount is 22222. The total project cost is, it's the total project cost for that grant.
Okay, so that one's okay.
Yeah, and this 2222 is matched by the DC grant. And this is if we get it,
Yeah.
if we get all 3. So everything changes if we only get one of the grants.
Sure,
But when we apply for it, we put it in, it's through the CFA system. And so when we apply for the project, and then we click all the grants that we think apply to that project.
okay, so 4B is the grant of $1 million and match of $1 million.
Yep,
So
total
that's
project cost is 2 million.
2. So the total project cost is still not, if I add up the 3 sheets,
It's not adding up because you have to subtract the 22222 because that's part of the match.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's, I see, 2 million plus 2.
But it should add up to
1.25.
5.25 million.
Plus. I'm sorry to belabor this, I'm not getting it. If I take 4A, I would subtract 222 from that,
Yeah, so you would,
so that would be 2.
2 million,
Okay, the next sheet would be
2 million
2 million. And
plus,
the next sheet would be 1. Okay, got it.
5.25.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
I know it's when they all match each other, it gets confusing.
And so the total match then is what?
1.25 million.
And where is that coming from?
Well, we listed that would come from in-kind, forced account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding. So at this point, there's no commitment to bonding. We have no idea if we'll get these grants or not.
Is there
So
any cash
cash,
exposure on the part of the city for this?
so it's, on the committee reports, we put the estimated financial impact to be determined because we don't know if we'll get the grants or not. So this particular action is just to authorize us to apply. And so we don't know what the impact will be until we know if we win the awards or not. And if we win the awards, maybe we'll only get 2 of the 3 grants, or maybe we'll get all 3, or maybe we'll just get 1. So then at that point, this is, to authorize the mayor to apply and execute documents if we win the grant. And then if we need the bonding,
You'd have to
or
come
then we would
back.
have to come back to
You'd
you.
have to come back
Yeah,
for the match.
yeah.
So for the present time, since we have an idea what it is, we can bracket it, but.
Yeah.
Okay,
Looks good to me.
okay. So, the motions in it for A, B, and C?
Motion,
Second.
second all of them?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll make a
Might as
motion for
well,
all of
yeah.
them, yeah.
Second.
you doing all of them?
All of them.
Second then.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
So then the next one would be the,
Hold on.
oh, sorry. I was
So
hoping we'd
sign
be done by
all
6:30, but I don't know, guys.
Good luck with that.
Okay. Next.
Okay, so the
You
next,
finished?
I got this
no,
one
you-
too.
got the next
Oh,
one
okay.
too.
Which one?
This is Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2.
Which number is that?
Number
5.
5. So this project is for Kingston Point Rail Trail Phase 2. It basically starts at the end of Phase 1, which is at Garrigan Drive, across the street. If you're standing at the police station and you look towards the Roundout Gardens, there's a trailhead being constructed right now. So starting from there, this will follow the old train tracks around to the Trolley Museum. And then we have procured CPL for this design as well. They were very lucky last month or so. Had really wonderful RFP responses. And so this would go essentially behind the Trolley Museum and follow through the Trolley Museum property, which is leased from the city, and then end on East Strand Street, out at where the tracks cross the Strand Street. And so this, it would be continuing the rail trail that's currently under construction and connecting up with the causeway, the road, and then the causeway that goes out to Kingston Point. And so we've met with the Trolley Museum. We met with them last week. They're really excited about this project. Part of it will be rail next to trail. It won't impact their operations as far as their trolley operations. But we may be moving some of the rails around inside the yard so that we can fit the trail in there. And we'll be working closely with them. And so it's actually a short distance, but it's a complicated distance. It's quite a bit more, in some ways, more complicated than the rest of the Kingston Point Rail Trail, except for the tunnel. That was a little complicated, but there may be some need for retaining walls, and there's going to be a need for fences to protect the Trolley Museum assets, and
Maintaining ADA access. I mean, right now, our preliminary assessment on grades, we looked at a couple different design alternatives, and it seems like the preferred option is to go behind the museum and keep it like a long straight shot. There's also an element where the museum was considering a 9/11 memorial. They have some artifacts from the site there, and we're going to try to maybe incorporate some sort of like pavilion or whatnot that'll commemorate all the fallen and show some of these artifacts, sort of protecting them from the elements. So I thought that was a nice kind of added element. Again, it's like going for the grant money. We're still in the very preliminary stages. We're going to work on getting the field survey done, and that'll help dictate some more parameters on the track. We're going to try to steer away from any sort of track realignment if we can, but we're prepared to deal with that if we need to. So.
And this is also, it's part of the Kingston Green Line, and this is also a section of the Kingston, the Empire State Trail. And so we think that this grant application will be very competitive because the governor wants to build the Empire State Trail by the end of next year. And and this is a missing link. And the funding here works pretty well. It would be, the total project cost would be $912,500. And the match amount would be only $62,500 from the city. And that's because the parks, the New York State Parks Grant and the New York State RTP grant can match each other. Or one matches the other, because one's a federal source and one's a state source. So as far as a percentage of total project cost, that's a pretty good ratio. And again, we for this one, we just went for the maximum amount because, we have to work with CPL to get, to crunch the numbers and get a better project budget by the end of July.
So on total project costs, you say 912.
912.
Yet when I add up the two sheets here, I get over $1 million.
And the reason for that is so the Parks Grant requires a match of $200,000, and 200 of the RTP application will match that.
Okay, similar to the first.
Yeah, so similar to the other one.
Okay.
So you essentially add all of the parks, the 600, the 200, and the 62.5.
But the amount we're applying for grants of $850,000, right? 2 grants?
2 grants for $850,000.
Okay.
Right.
And so if we get them, the total cost the city would be $62.5.
Yep. Yep, and I know this
Uh,
works, cause, we're doing
and
that on the
again-
Kingston Point Rail Trail currently, the RTP grant, we have the same grant sources, that matching each other.
So again, you might have to come back to
We may have to come back
Yeah,
for the
which is-
62.5.
normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
No? Motion?
Second.
You gotta do it twice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5A, 5B, all in favor?
Tim will be done by 6:05. Thank you, Tim.
Aye.
Thank you.
You already signed that. I think I handed you. You gotta sign one. You already signed the other.
that.
Actually,
You're
those are
okay
the
on
most
everything?
complicated ones.
Okay.
Those are the two projects that we have where we're having
Okay.
a couple of different grants on the same project, so that's
Okay.
the
All
most.
right, it was good seeing you. These will be more fun projects, I promise. Take care. All right, take care.
More certain.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Good night.
So you wanna go back to number 1? This one's really straightforward. We've applied for this a number of times. We're gonna go for it again. This is, the Roundout Riverport Shoreline Stabilization Phase 1. It's for bulkhead in front of the Hudson River Maritime Museum and the ferry slip, which is, if you're looking at the river, it's just to the left of the
Yeah.
boat building school.
Mhm.
In previous years, we've applied from the Hudson River Maritime Museum all the way down to the Cornell Street, or the Cornell building. This year, we're just applying for essentially half the project, because the project costs are much more for that entire stretch. And, we will have, by the time we submit this, we'll have pretty much 100% design for that section.
Mhm.
It's just one grant, one match required.
Do you expect most of that match to be in
This will be,
non-cash? Or don't you know?
it will most likely be a bond for this one,
Mhm.
because it's for construction.
Yeah, I mean, you allude to other kinds of match, you know.
I mean, we might have a little small portion of it for in-kind as staff to manage the project, but I think with this project, we need all the money we can get for construction.
Mhm.
We've applied for it for a number of years. In the past, I think we didn't have design complete. I don't think our numbers were great because, we hadn't finished design, and now we're getting closer. I think this is a very important project, because Steve's talked with the Hudson River Maritime, and Steve is actually on the advisory committee for this project design. The Hudson River Maritime Museum is having a lot of problems in their basement, their sink holes in front of their building. I think it's very important for the structural integrity of the museum, and this would also include the promenade in front of the Hudson River Maritime Museum. It's really just the very beginning
Mhm.
of a whole shoreline
Yeah.
stabilization process,
Mhm.
all the way out to the
I think it's
lighthouse.
important for the whole city as well as the maritime. It would open up a lot of possibilities down there. I'm excited for it.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What was the financial?
I'm sorry.
What was the financial on this,
Let me read it, please, okay?
no, just give me the,
Total project cost is $2,352,951.
thank you.
941.
Huh?
941,
Whatever.
right?
2,352,941.
Yeah.
Grant, applying for is $2 million, and the grant would be the match would be the balance, 352,941. To be determined, depending upon the grant. Okay.
Be helpful to hear that when you're discussing it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Number 2 is, this is actually, there's a letter that accompanies this project. It's from the city engineer's office. Is it best? Written by, signed, well,
Do we
written by
have it?
Sean Coster.
Mm-hmm.
You have it?
No.
No,
Oh,
you
I
can
got
have
two
this.
copies for some reason.
Essentially, the letter says very much the similar thing as what I have in this summary. This is a project that the Hasbrook CSO sewer shed, the combined sewer shed, is a project that we started last year with phase 1. This is essentially to separate the sewer from the stormwater, so that then we can have fewer combined sewer overflows down on the waterfront. Ty and Bond completed a report in 2017, and that report has 6 phases that are listed out that would separate the sewer, essentially starting from close to the river, going up the sewer shed. So this phase is phase 2. I think they've estimated construction costs at 1.611 million, $1,611,200, or 1.611200. And the grant match is 25% of the grant award, which is a little different than the project cost. So this is $402,800.
That sums to $2,289,000? No. Funds of $1,000,016.
Actually, this is an inaccuracy on the committee report. The total project cost for the grant should be $2,014,000. But
So strike 1,611,000.
no, the total project on the committee report on number 2, this total project cost should be $2,014,000.
Yeah, that's what I come up with.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
that's the grant. So there's the total project cost for the grant, and then there's the total project cost of what this will actually cost. There's other funds that will be needed for design, which is $275,000. That cannot be covered by the grant or match.
So on this committee report, we're looking at a total project cost of $2,014,000,
Yes,
of which the grant was $1,611,200, and the 25% match would be $402,800.
right. So, but what I have listed on here and what's on the letter from the engineer's office is that there's other funds that will be needed for the design of this we don't have this project designed. The Ty and Bond report is a conceptual plan, so we have to design.
So it's a pre-design.
Yeah, the Ty and Bond report is a pre-design.
Mm-hmm.
So we would need $275,000 to design the project, which brings the total, that's why we have the 2,289,000.
And do we expect grants to cover that?
At this time, we don't have a grant application that we would submit
But I know.
at this time,
I know.
but we could look for other design
But would
funding.
you intend to do that?
We can do that, if there's funding sources available for design.
I mean, I would think if we pre-design, except a conceptual design and want to go further, ultimately, the detailed design and construction, we're gonna wanna get funded somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be ideal to find grant funding for the detailed design.
But without that, would you expect the city to bankroll this, pay for it? Or you don't know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, that's your choices. Those are your choices and engineering. I mean, I think that, you know, for any of the costs that we have for any of these projects, we always trying to look for more grant funding
Sure.
to cover it.
Yeah.
But it has to do with timing, how the design goes, what are,
And you usually find it.
sometimes.
Okay, this is a resolution requesting authorization for the mayor to apply and execute documents for a grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Water Quality Improvement Program for funds in the amount of $1,611,200 for the Phase 2 Hasbrook CSO Sewer Separation Project as described in the Hasbrook Avenue CSO Sewer Shed Engineering Plant by T&B Engineering PC, and to request the termination of the project as a Type 2 action and designating the City of Kingston Common Council as the lead agency for SEQR. The match requirement of 25% of the grant award in the amount of $402,800 will be provided by in-kind, force account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding to be requested. The total project cost is $2,014,000, and the estimated financial impact is to be determined.
This is a mandated improvement, isn't it, or no?
It's not I don't believe it's mandated. I'm sorry, I'm not able to speak to this very well because it's really an engineering project. But I think it helps us meet our speedies permit regulations. I mean, essentially it's reducing the amount of combined sewer overflows that go into the river. So it's reducing raw sewage going into the river. That's what the purpose of this whole project is.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving on to, that was number 3.
3.
Academy Green Park.
So I'll start, or do you want to start?
I'll start, I'll fill in, jump in when you need.
Yeah, essentially this is a grant request for Academy Green Park improvements. These were improvements that were detailed in the Downtown Revitalization Initiative strategic investment plan. This was one of the projects that was not funded by the DRI, was not chosen by the governor, but you know, it was obviously a priority for the community and uptown community as it made it into the strategic investment plan. So we've decided to apply this year, and Ruth Ann can explain the project.
Well, as it was described in the strategic plan, the goal is to increase access to the park because right now it's a little bit difficult crossing into it, and the sidewalks are not terrific around the area, and it does need additional landscaping, plans for future horticulture activities and maintenance, and also we would like to restore the statues that are there. They were installed, I'm not sure what year they were installed, but they were created in New York City over 100 years ago, and they're in need of some restoration. So it'll ultimately improve the park and hopefully draw more users and increase the activity that goes on there.
Put the pool back?
I think there'll be electrical and water infrastructure improvements, but not a pool.
I
So
think
this would be for design and construction.
Design and construction.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it'd be great to see in that beautiful park. It really needs some spiffing up. And you're right, the access sometimes is not as good as it could be. So I think this is a great project.
It does tie into some other work that we're doing, and hopefully down the road, we might be able to integrate some of the design for what's happening around the turnaround and make it all flow better.
And it's really one of the gateways to our city. And it's a beautiful park, and we can make it better. So great. Committee report is to request authorization for the mayor to apply and execute documents for a grant for the New York State OPRHP for EP, what does EF stand for, EPF?
Environmental
Let me get the
protection.
acronyms right,
Yeah.
Office of OPRHP.
Parks, Recreation, and Historic
Thank you.
Preservation.
For an EPF, not everybody knows these, including myself.
Environmental Protection Fund.
Environmental Protection Fund.
Environmental Protection
Fund.
Heritage Area Grant for funds in the amount of $600,000 for restoration, access, electrical, water, and landscape improvements in the Academy Green Park in support of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Strategic Plan. The match requirement of 25% in the amount of $200,000 will be provided by in-kind, force account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding to be requested. Total project cost is $800,000, and the estimated financial impact, because of the unknown match, is to be determined. Other questions?
No motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Okay, number 6, I'm going to do the best I can to speak about this, but this is not really my area of expertise. This is a grant application to the New York State Department of State for their Brownfield Opportunity Area Program. It's essentially funding the development of the Brownfield Opportunity nomination for a section of Midtown that has a concentration of brownfields. My understanding is that when we're able to do the nomination, then it's basically the first steps towards being able to remediate those brownfields. And by remediating the brownfields, then you're able to attract more development or infill development. So, and then you don't have environmental contamination in your community. You have something that actually means a business or home or something like that. So this is for essentially the design or the study for the brownfield nomination. This grant would come through the Economic Development Office.
So it's a match of 10%, so
Right.
300,000 gets you 333,000.
Yeah.
Okay. From the Office of Grant Management, to request authorization for the mayor to apply and execute documents for a grant to the New York State Department of State for funds in an amount of $300,000 for the Midtown Brownfield Opportunity Area Designation Project. The match requirement of 10% of the project cost in the amount of $33,333 will be provided by in-kind, force account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding to be requested. Total project cost is $333,000. The estimated financial impact is to be determined.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay,
Number
very-
seven,
similar.
very similar in nature, but this one is focused on the Randout waterfront. This would fund a housing needs assessment and an inventory of existing conditions, residential properties down in the waterfront area. It would supplement the work, of Midtown, and, essentially we'd have real data for the city, except right now we have data for housing, but it's extrapolated from county and regional reports, so my understanding is that this will, be better data, better analysis for us to be able to move forward with,
Same grant
next
match,
step.
just a different location.
Yeah, that area is already a designated brownfield area, and that's what makes it qualify
Okay.
for this next step.
Okay, to request authorization for the mayor to apply and execute documents for a grant from the New York State Department of State for funds in the amount of $300,000 for a pre-development study of the Rondout waterfront, BOA. What is BOA?
brownfield opportunity area.
Thank you. The match requirement of 10% of the project cost in the amount of $33,000 will be provided by in-kind, Porsche account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding to be requested. Total project cost is $333,000, estimated financial impact to be determined.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, and now, final one is number
Number 8.
8.
This is a grant, application to the New York State Department of State Local Government Efficiency Program. And the purpose of this grant program is essentially to assist, local governments to consolidate services, and reduce the burden of that consolidation effort on taxpayers. And, so, as I think maybe most people know or will know very soon, we are consolidating the Ulster County, the UCAT buses and the city bus. I think that consolidation begins on
It's
July
announced
1st.
today, the mayor
Yeah.
announced it today.
And so, as a result of this, the city's scheduled to, there's actually a typo in the summary, it's $225,000 per year, not $250,000. That's, we are scheduled to pay that for 5 years to cover the costs of the integration effort, and so essentially we apply for this grant to, cover some of those costs. The application amount would be for $400,000. 200,000 of that would go to the city and 200,000 would go to the county. So it's not 400 just for the city of Kingston, it's for the integration effort. And it goes to both the city and the county, but it would reduce at least our burden in the first year.
So, off the hook.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this is a committee report to request authorization for the mayor to apply and execute documents for a grant from the New York State Department of State, LGEP. What is that?
Local Government Efficiency Program.
For funds in the amount of $400,000 for the final phases of the UCAT and city bus transit system integration. The match requirement of 10% in the amount of $44,444 will be provided by in-kind, force account funds, donations, and if necessary, bonding to be requested. The total project is $444,444 with the estimated financial impact to be determined.
That match, I think, would be covered by what we're already, that would be covered by the integration. I don't think that we would have to come back to the city for bonding, and it would already be covered by
Okay.
what we're already going to be spending. I mean, this is essentially to reduce what we're already spending.
Questions or
Motion.
Second. Ready to not spend money.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And is there one more here?
And then the very last one, it's on the back of the letter. It's a resolution for the Arts Society of Kingston. Is there somebody here from Arts Society?
Yes.
Oh, great. Oh, hi. So this is so they're, the Arts Society, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Richard Wixom.
Richard, oh, nice to meet you.
Richard, what?
Wixom.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
we know each
yeah,
other, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, been a while.
And you've been in the building. You've been in the building, so you're a little bit familiar with it.
Yeah.
So essentially, this is to regret, they're applying for a CFA to, I think, the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Rec, yes, and I think there are a couple others that we may check off, as you mentioned. So
Right.
This is for the building. We're also doing in the NISCA section of the CFA, we're doing a workforce development so that we might hire somebody in addition to the current staff of one semi-full-time and one part-time person, and the new hire would be for development, so, you know, try to make things bigger and better.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a building I think you're all familiar with because it was owned up until 2005 by the city. 97 Broadway, okay, it was community development offices. The building is right here. So it's, the rear center is right on the corner, then 97 is the next building in. That's the general context of where we're at. Let's see, what's the most clear cut? All right, so really the heart of this, and just while we're at it, let me explain. So you have the building here, and there's a 12-foot alley next to Nancy Donskoy's building at 93 Broadway. The Art Society owns that alley, and that's actually part of this grant application would be to develop that alley into what we're referring to as an arts plaza. So it essentially would represent a kind of an invitation to from the street to the side of the building, and previously we have changed out 2 windows into doors at the side of the building, so we would have an opportunity to bring people into that plaza and then also enter the building. It would be a place where people could gather, a place during intermissions of performances and so forth and so on. So the grant is to renovate the facade, improve the facade, and then turning around the corner, create this raised and paved plaza that we're talking about. And a third part of that would be universal access to the building, which is not perfect as we speak right now. We need to have access here at this door that would allow a wheelchair to get into the building. The 2 doors on the sides actually have the low profile threshold, so if we raise that plaza would become accessible to anyone in a wheelchair or a walker by coming through the building and utilizing that plaza. And then the final part of this would be the vision of an elevator, which based on my discussions with Brad Will, our architect, the best place for that would be in a tower outside of the building, kind of at the back end of this alley, so that we would have total legal, federally responsible, universal access to the building, both the first floor and the second floor. So that's what we're looking at, and there's kind of a vision of the facade with a peek into the alley. As you can see, it will really be a great improvement of the streetscape. We plan to replace all of these, and also a great improvement in energy efficiency. All of these windows would be replaced. The 2 entrances would be, the doors would be replaced and the transoms would be replaced. This would also be replaced, and we will, of course, retain the beautiful half-round windows at the top of this. Also in the plan is a sort of glass canopy here that would shelter the center entrance to the building. That clearly, from an architectural standpoint, was always the main entrance to the building. It's just that, when the city had it, the steps had somewhere along the line been removed. And so we've always used this entrance, which the police and community development also used when they were in the building. So the universal access is really from the high side of the sidewalk, It would essentially be a sidewalk level entrance to it, and it would run across the front of the building so that you'd have your wheelchair or walker person would be able to get in here and go right onto this, this ramp, which would be essentially level from that high point of the building, enter through this door, and anyone else would be able to walk on and enter through this center door, which would not necessarily be universally accessible. The motorized door would be here. So that's pretty much.
Ambitious plan. How big a grant are you hoping for?
I'm gonna say bulk, because we haven't really gotten to the point of asking contractors, although we will do that certainly. We'll have a
Yeah.
budget for it by the time we're done, but I would say worst case scenario, something in the range of $400,000 to $450,000 total for everything you see here.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna be a great improvement.
it would be terrific, and it's a wonderful building. If you haven't been there recently, stop in.
At
It's-
the risk of really dating myself, I played basketball in there when I was a kid.
As part of the renovation, we actually took out the remains of the basketball.
Well, I could, I was there
There's-
for something, and I could see over one of the partitions. I said, geez, is the basketball court still there? Man, it wasn't a great basketball court.
It was a half court, yeah. Yeah, that preceded the Rondout Neighborhood
Right,
Center.
yeah.
Let me read the resolution. To request the endorsement of the Art Society of Kingston's 2019 CFA application for a grant from the Environmental Protection Fund under the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for replacement of the facade of 7 windows upstairs, 2 entry doors, and a floor-length window downstairs with enhanced lighting and an ADA compliant walkway to the
That's
entries, as well as the renovation of the adjacent outdoor space into an arts plaza, including an elevator for fully compliant ADA access to the 2nd floor. Estimated financial impact to the city of Kingston is 0.
Right, and I believe we're in a census tract where the grant, and this is through Parks and Rec, and we've applied for this before, actually, in 2011, 2012, and I'm quite sure that the match is 75-25, so in other words, we would need to come up with 25% of the total cost, and we actually have a pretty solid commitment from private donors for roughly that amount, if we're talking $400,000. So we have a pretty secure match. We've been down this route before, it's not our first rodeo.
We
We had,
don't so much there, it's amazing.
yeah, thank you.
Mm. Is there a motion?
Very cool. I will make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm extremely pleased to support you on this.
Thank you.
That's great.
So we just.
Opposed, anyone was any opposed? I didn't ask.
Doug, so we just have one more organization that is applying for a CFA. They don't need a resolution, but Maggie came from TransArt. If you don't mind, just to explain the
Sure,
project.
yeah.
And she'll be seeking a.
Good to see you,
Yeah.
thanks. Thank you very much, Young.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we'll be in touch. So Maggie will explain what they're applying for.
Okay.
They'll be seeking the letter of support from the mayor, but some of the grant sources don't require a resolution, but she thought she'd just come and share about it.
Hi, Maggie Inge from TransArt and Cultural Services. And the first grant that we're looking at is, the thing that you're most familiar with is we're doing the restoration of the building on the corner of Henry and Furnace, that 1057 Henry Street. And so that building, as if you've been by recently, we've just about completed the roof and we'll begin the completion of the envelope. And we anticipate having the envelope and all of the interior work completed for essentially a sort of occupancy in the spring of 2020. So we are now applying for the final phase of the building, which is to put porches on the foot, which is to restore the porch on the front and the porch in the back, which will be our ADA access. And so we are applying to the NISCA, New York State Council of the Arts.
Thank you.
Capital fund. They have a mid-sized capital fund for projects that are art-related.
Mhm.
And so we are applying, at this point, we're still getting the final estimates in on the cost of that, but it looks like it's about $300,000 total, and we'll be applying for about $150,000.
Oh, so you need a local match?
We need nothing from you.
Well, from somebody.
Well, we already actually have a match.
Oh, okay.
We have a match. This will be the final phase of because we have in-house, or sort of in the bank right now, the money to do most of the completion,
Terrific. Yeah.
Nice.
complete most of the project.
Okay, so you'll be coming to us with a resolution to support you on this, is that?
It's a letter from the mayor.
Yeah.
We don't need a resolution.
Yeah.
so, right.
We don't need a resolution, but Maggie
Yeah.
had contacted me,
A
and
letter
said,
of
come
support,
and
yeah.
share about the projects with the community. You know, maybe asking for letters of support from
Yeah.
other community members, so it's just, you know, good to let folks know,
What we're doing.
what CFAs are
Yeah.
coming from the city of Kingston and the community partners.
And then our second is for an arts impact award for to plan and create and implement a Pinkster Festival in Kingston. If you're not familiar with Pinkster, Pinkster is the first African-American festival in the United States. And they originated right here in the Hudson Valley. You know, the first enslaved Africans were brought to this area by the Dutch, who were the original settlers here. And they celebrated Pinkster. They celebrated Pentecost. And during Pentecost, which by the Dutch Reformed religion required that they not work, that there be no work during that week, they therefore freed all their slaves for the week of Pentecost. And that wound up being a Pinkster festival. Pinkster being celebrated by the enslaved Africans as their only week off during the year. I mean, if you could call it a week off, but it was the one time that they were freed of their responsibilities and could actually engage, see the family that they were otherwise separated from, take care of any other business, any business. The sort of local lore that is the most famous around Pinkster is that it was during Pinkster in 1827 that Sojourner Truth traveled to this building to purchase the freedom of her son,
To here?
her son Peter.
I mean, to this building, yeah.
She came right here to purchase the freedom. And so so we think it's very appropriate to have a Pinkster Festival here in Kingston. It will when we combine it with the reenactment of the burning of Kingston, the recently protected African burial grounds, and it creates a real historical destination out of Kingston in a way that has never existed before.
Okay. What is your timing on this? When are you going to apply?
We're applying through the CFA. It's a $100,000.
Oh, part of the CFA.
It's
Yeah,
a-
same
It's
grant.
the same one. It's a flat
Yeah.
100.
Okay.
And we'll raise whatever match we need
Sure. Okay.
through other service sources.
And the grant it's applying to who?
It's to the New York State Council of the Arts.
That's all right. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you.
Great.
If
Thanks,
you have
Kristen.
questions or need us to come back to caucus, let us know.
I'd just like to say great work again. A lot went into this.
Well,
Make
this
it
year I had help, so.
Make it difficult for us by coming up with so many grants.
Yeah, you make it so hard. Okay.
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Okay. Move for adjournment,
Motion,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
motion to take 5.